My fiancée moved in with her boss and cleared out our joint savings account while I was deployed in Syria. And years later, she contacted me, begging for me to save her from the monster she had chosen over me. I had been gone for 9 months, eating sand and dodging mortar fire in a place that God forgot, and the only thing that kept my sanity tethered to the earth was the thought of Elena. I had the ring hidden in my locker back at base, a modest diamond that I had spent 3 months of hazardous duty pay to afford. When the transport plane finally touched down on American soil, the air tasted sweet, but the silence on my phone was deafening. There was no welcome home banner, no tearful reunion at the gate, just the indifferent shuffle of civilians and the heavy thud of my duffel bag hitting the floor. I took an Uber to the house we had rented together, a small craftsman bungalow with a porch she loved to decorate. When I pulled up, the porch was bare. The potted plants were dead, brown skeletons rattling in the wind. My key turned in the lock, but the door felt lighter, hollow. I stepped inside, and the echo of my boots on the hardwood told me everything before my eyes even adjusted to the gloom. The house was gutted. The furniture was gone. The pictures of us in Cabo, the painting we bought at the flea market, even the rug where we used to sit and drink wine, all of it vanished. In the center of the living room, sitting on the floor, was a single envelope with my name scrawled on it in her handwriting. I tore it open, my hands shaking, not from fear, but from a rising molten heat in my chest. It was a letter, short and sterile. She had fallen in love with Julian, her boss at the marketing firm. She said she was tired of the waiting, tired of the fear of that knock on the door, and that Julian offered her a life of safety and luxury that a grunt like me never could. She took the savings, money we had put aside for a wedding and a down payment, claiming it was reimbursement for the emotional distress of my deployment. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I stood there in the empty living room, the silence pressing against my eardrums like deep water. I felt a coldness spread from my stomach to my extremities, a numbness that was more terrifying than rage. I visualized Julian. I had met him once, a soft man with manicured hands and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. And then I visualized Elena in his bed, safe, warm, and rich, while I had been shivering in a foxhole, praying I'd live long enough to see her again. I walked to the kitchen, or where the kitchen table used to be. I found a glass jar she had left behind, one of those decorative things filled with seashells. I picked it up and hurled it at the wall. The crash was the only sound I had made. The shards rained down, scratching the floor, but it wasn't enough. I'd put my fist through the drywall, feeling the plaster crumble and the wood lath bite into my knuckles. I punched it again and again until my hand was a bloody ruin, matching the devastation inside my chest.
I left the house that night and didn't look back. I checked into a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where people go to disappear. The weeks that followed were a blur of cheap whiskey and blackout curtains. I stopped answering my phone. I stopped shaving. The discipline that the Corps had drilled into me dissolved in a solvent of self-pity and alcohol. I spent my days staring at the ceiling fan, counting the rotations, trying to outrun the memories of Elena and the memories of the war. They started to bleed together. The sound of an IED detonating became the sound of my heart breaking. The face of a fallen comrade morphed into Elena's face, laughing at me. I was drowning, and I didn't care if I ever came up for air. It was Miller who dragged me out. We had served in the same fire team, and he knew my demons because they were his demons too. He kicked down the door of my motel room one Tuesday morning, the wood splintering inward. He didn't say a word about the smell or the empty bottles scattered like shell casings around the bed. He just grabbed me by the collar of my shirt and hauled me upright. "You're done," Miller growled, his face inches from mine. "You didn't survive an ambush in the valley just to die in a Motel 6. Get your gear, we're leaving." I tried to swing at him, but I was weak and uncoordinated. He blocked it easily and shoved me into the bathroom. "Shower, now."
Miller saved my life. He moved me into his guest room and forced me into a routine. Wake up at 0500, run until my lungs burned, lift heavy iron until my muscles failed, eat clean, sleep, repeat. He didn't let me talk about her, and he didn't let me drink. The withdrawal was physical agony, the shakes, the cold sweats, the irritability, but Miller stood guard like a sentry, ensuring I didn't slip. 6 months passed. I got a job working private security for a tech firm. The pay was good, the work was easy, and it kept my mind occupied. I was rebuilding the foundation of my life, brick by brick, filling the cracks with mortar made of sweat and discipline. I thought I was over her. I told myself I didn't care if she was alive or dead. Then I saw them. I was at a high-end steakhouse, doing a security walkthrough for a client who was dining there. The lighting was dim, the atmosphere hushed and expensive. In a corner booth, bathed in the soft glow of a table lamp, sat Elena and Julian. I froze, the earpiece in my ear buzzing with static I suddenly couldn't hear. She looked different. The Elena I knew was vibrant, full of color and laughter. This woman was a pale imitation. She was wearing a dress that cost more than my car, but she looked small inside of it. Her hair was pulled back too tight, her makeup heavy, trying to conceal the gauntness of her cheeks. Julian was talking, gesturing with a fork, his face flushed with wine. He wasn't looking at her, he was lecturing her. I watched as she reached for her wine glass, her hand trembling slightly. Julian reached out and clamped his hand over her wrist, stopping her. He whispered something sharp, his eyes narrowing. Elena flinched. She put her hand back in her lap and looked down at the tablecloth. The rage didn't hit me like a tidal wave this time. It was a cold, precise thing, a sniper's focus. I saw the fear in her posture, the way she made herself small to avoid his attention. She wasn't living in luxury. She was living in a cage.
I didn't approach them. I finished my shift, my jaw set so hard my teeth ached. But later that night, as I sat in my truck, my phone buzzed. It was a number I had deleted, but never forgotten. "I saw you tonight. Please don't hate me. I made a mistake. I'm scared." I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me, the part that she had destroyed, wanted to delete the message and drive away. She had made her choice. She had stolen from me, abandoned me, and left me for this better life. But the other part of me, the part that had sworn to protect the weak, couldn't ignore the terror I had seen in her eyes. I texted back, "Where are you?" She replied with an address. It wasn't the mansion I expected. It was a sterile, modern apartment complex downtown. She said Julian was out of town for business for one night. She begged me to come over, just to talk. I went, not for love, but for closure. When she opened the door, she collapsed into my arms. She was sobbing, her body shaking violently. I held her, but my arms didn't wrap around her with the warmth they once had. I stood there like a statue, letting her cry. She pulled back and showed me the bruises. They were on her upper arms, her ribs, the back of her neck. "He gets so angry," she whispered, her voice cracking. "He controls everything, my phone, my money, who I talk to. I tried to leave once, and he told me he'd kill me. He has connections, lawyers. He said he'd ruin me and then bury me." "Why did you do it, Elena?" I asked, my voice flat. "I was weak," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I wanted the easy life. I was selfish, and now I'm paying for it. Please, you have to help me leave. I have a bag packed. I just need a ride to my sister's in Oregon. If I go alone, he'll find me."
I looked at her, really looked at her. The love was gone, burned away by the betrayal, but the duty remained. I couldn't leave a woman to be beaten by a coward, even if that woman had broken me. "Get your bag," I said. We were walking to my truck when a black sedan screeched into the parking lot. Julian. He must have tracked her phone or had cameras in the apartment. He jumped out, his face twisted in a snarl. He wasn't the soft man I remembered. He was drunk and emboldened by rage. "You whore!" he screamed, storming toward us. "I knew you were up to something." He lunged for Elena. I didn't think, I reacted. I stepped between them, catching his wrist as he raised his hand to strike her. I twisted it, hearing the satisfying pop of cartilage, and shoved him back. He stumbled, shock replacing the anger on his face. "Stay back," I warned, my voice low. "Do you know who I am?" Julian spat, clutching his wrist. "I'll have you arrested. I'll have you—" He swung at me, a clumsy, telegraphed haymaker. I ducked under it easily. All the training, all the hours in the gym with Miller, all the repressed anger from Syria and the empty house, it all channeled into one moment. I drove my fist into his gut, doubling him over. As he wheezed, I grabbed him by the expensive lapels of his jacket and slammed him against the side of his car. I swept his legs, sending him crashing to the asphalt. I mounted him, pinning his arms with my knees. I didn't beat him into a pulp. I didn't need to. I leaned down, my face inches from his, and let him see the eyes of a man who had hunted people far more dangerous than him for a living. "If you ever go near her again," I whispered, "if you ever even look in her direction, I will come back, and next time I won't be this gentle. Do you understand me?" He nodded frantically, blood trickling from his lip, terror wide in his eyes. I stood up and dusted off my hands. I walked over to Elena, who was standing by my truck, trembling. I opened the door for her. We drove in silence for hours. We crossed the state line as the sun began to rise, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges. When we finally reached the bus station that would take her the rest of the way to Oregon, a precaution so he couldn't track my truck to her sister's, she turned to me. "Can we try again?" she asked, her voice small, hopeful. "I know I messed up, but I still love you. We can fix this."
I looked at her, silhouetted against the morning light. I felt a pang of sadness, a ghostly echo of the life we almost had. But the trust was dead. It was a shattered mirror. You could glue it back together, but the reflection would always be broken. "No, Elena," I said gently. "But you saved me," she cried. "You fought for me." "I didn't do it for us," I told her, my hand on the steering wheel, looking out at the open road. "I did it because I'm not the kind of man who walks away when someone is in trouble. That's the difference between me and him, and that's the difference between me and you." Her face fell. She understood. She nodded slowly, wiped her eyes, and opened the door. "Thank you," she whispered. "Goodbye, Elena." I watched her board the bus. As the engine roared to life and the bus pulled away, I expected to feel hollow again. I expected the grief to return. But as I put my truck in gear and turned back toward the highway, I felt something else. I felt lighter. The ghost that had been haunting me for years was finally gone. I rolled down the windows, letting the cold morning air rush in, smelling of pine and asphalt and freedom. I had my scars, invisible and jagged, but they were beginning to fade. I picked up my phone and dialed Miller. "You up?" I asked. "Always," he grunted. "Where you at?" "On my way back," I said, watching the sun break fully over the horizon. "Get the coffee ready. It's leg day."